Okay.
Yeah, we are live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Today is a special day for all partners of the Income Tourism Project, because today we start a new way of communicating our activities. Since in normal circumstances, we would all be sitting at the same table, and after all, we are in our homes, in our offices, looking at the screen. COVID-19 has come to change our lives and also brings changes to the institutions and the way of life that we call normal. We know that the health emergency is not yet resolved, is far from that, as we know, but the partners of Income Tourism Project are also already looking at this crisis and the necessary recovery. This is the reason that brings us here today for this COVID-19 webinar, Reflections on Challenges for the T&H Sector. The Income Project Tourism aims to foster a new learning approach, linked the development of the soft skills and based on a cooperative learning process that brings together higher education institutions and the businesses in the tourism industry. The development of the learning model will be carried out by ACE in a close consultation with the businesses. During the academic year of 2019 and 2020, a pilot test was expected to take place simultaneously in all universities participating in the Income Tourism Project. It was expected that the selected students, supported by in-company tutors and tutors, would experience a new cooperative learning model which involves our students going to the businesses for a work-based learning experience. The pilot test was possible to carry out in the first semester. However, in February of 2020, the propagation of the coronavirus disease in Europe began. This situation conditioned the implementation of the pilot tests, as students could not go to the businesses and we had to adapt to the new circumstances. But this did not stop us from maintaining a close relationship with the businesses and to find ways to help them to go through this situation. As such, we challenged the students to go work on a joint reflection with tutors and entrepreneurs in company tutors, focusing on the needs, the problems and the challenges the business are facing and the ways to recover. As businesses from different countries are likely to face similar challenges, students from 5 participating A's were stimulated to work together around the same topics, exchanging experience on a joint global-wide reflection to be presented at a final webinar covering 5 areas of T&H sector: accommodation, food and beverage, destination management, travel agencies and tour operators, and MICE. The opening and the introduction of this webinar will be responsibility of DHBW Ravensburg in Germany. We will have as keynote speakers Connie Meyer-Bounds and Stefan Leupolz, who will show us a perspective on how dual education is maintained in times of pandemic. Thank you, Conan and Stephanie, for your presence. Then we will have a panel called Destination Management, presented by University of Girona in Spain and moderated by Silvia Olé. Good morning, Silvia, and thank you. Our third panel this morning will be dedicated to foods and beverage. Andrea Ponzi from the University of Bergamo, Italy, will be our speaker. Thank you very much, Andrea, for your cooperation. At 10 o'clock in the morning, we will have a panel dedicated to accommodation, which will be brought to us by University of Split in Croatia and will be moderated by Ludovic Pranik. Good morning, Ludovic, and thank you. At 20 we will have a panel entitled Travel Agencies and Tour Operators that will be brought by us, by PVC in Portugal, which will have Paul Carança as moderator. Thank you, Paul, for being available to participate in this webinar. Finally, we will have Joe Tanti from MBB in Malta. Thank you, Joe, for your presence. Who will talk to us about MICE, meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. I also want to underline that this presentation is being transmitted online through the social networks of Income Projects and some of its partners. But because we want this to be a dynamic presentation, we encourage everyone who follow us to leave your comments or questions in the comments of this transmission. I reinforce my thanks to everyone. I'm sure it will be a very productive debate. Without further, I give the word to Connie Meyer-Bounds and Stephanie Lupol from DHBW Ravensburg. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Stefan, shall I start? And Thomas, or Thomas, would you like to start briefly? Yeah, that looks great. And I can't hear Thomas, so I will start. Thank you very much, Ricardo, for your nice welcome. Indeed, we are not together in Ravensburg, unfortunately, but at least we have the opportunity to meet here and to discuss that topic. And at the beginning, I would like to introduce myself very briefly. I'm a professor and dean of studies at the Center for Tourism and Hospitality Studies at the Baden-Württemberg Cooperative State University. And my focus of work is tourism management as well as tourism marketing. And in my previous life, I was a politician. And in Germany, we would say, I always wear political classes on everything we do at the university. The topic I'm talking about, you can see, is the challenges in a time of Corona. And I'll start with a focus on the situation of the students and our business partners during the last, let's say, 2 months. And my colleague Stefan will report on the role of the head of departments at the university. So I'll have a look on the partners and the students in the business, and Stefan will have a look at how we face the crisis in the university. So, and now let's have a look. And may I have the first slide? Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. Let's have a look on what the students did and still do in times of Corona, and which ideas our business partners had to employ them. Remember, a lot of tourist companies were closed, and some of them are still closed. Some of them were open, but had bad times in business, less guests, less visitors, but a lot of complaints. So the situation was, and I would say still is, really difficult for the students and as well for us in supporting them. Take the example of hotel or trade fair, amusement parks, or campsites. They were closed for up to 10 weeks, 11 weeks. So sometimes, and this is the, you can give me the next slide, please. This is the house you can see here. Some of our students just stayed at home and had nothing to do. But however, many of our students were also employed at their companies during the entire lockdown period. And regardless of whether the company was closed or not closed. And they had very different tasks. And I want to name a few things, what they did, so that you all can get an idea of what the students and their companies were doing to do their jobs and to employ the students. The task were as varied as ever. I want to pick 2 different tasks and try to categorize what the students do. Could you show the next slide, please? Thank you. At the bottom right of the picture, you can see a brush. I choose this as a symbol because the students were employed and they had to do whatever was needed. Take the example of a travel agency or travel agent. The students had a lot to do, or the business had a lot to do. Most of the students were busy to speak with customers, to cancel the booked trips, to answer all the questions, and they had to do with a lot of complaints. But students, and this is the brush, helped in housekeeping, they renovating occasion rooms or doing other handcrafts. One student told me that she helped pluck weeds in the garden of a hotel. Another told me that he managed the whole breakfast service nearly alone. It was a business hotel. They had open all the time. One student reported me that he had rearranged the travel agency storage room. And now I come, please, the next slide, to the 3rd group of tasks. You see the light bulb at the bottom left. And it's a symbol for that many students were able to develop great ideas. And many of them worked conceptually. They developed, alone or with colleagues, concepts for different things in their companies. I know of a student who, together with a colleague, developed the website for the holiday destination with his business partner. Others have written guest questionnaires or revised the menu. A student, this was a tour operator, I think, was involved in the development of new product ideas for a time after Corona and for the time with Corona. Both was the topic. So the tasks sometimes were creative and the students were able to learn conceptual and strategic thinking. I came to the end of my part. In conclusion, it can be said that companies on one hand and the students on the other hand have done, in my opinion, a great job in the past few months. The company were creative and really committed to training students despite this difficult situation. The students were willing to take on activities that were not intended to do and which were not discussed in this way. So to put it in a nutshell, it was a difficult situation for our companies, for our students, as well for us at a university, but companies and students were very creative and very open to deal this situation. So on my part, I say thank you for your attention. I'm now happy to hand over to my colleague, Stefan Lupold.
Thanks very much, Connie. And hello from Ravensburg, however. I'm happy to continue our little introduction into that topic. And it's quite hard as we are challenging the current situation and at the same time thinking about the future. So first of all, I would like to introduce you to the very specific role of the head of a degree program. I myself am head of the MICE degree program. So, and I guess it's quite different to the other roles you have at your universities, because we, as head of a degree program, have to handle plenty of different tasks. We, for instance, give you a quick example. Today we have written exam, and what we did is we planned that on our own. So we planned the lectures, we planned the examination days, and all of that. And we have a relation as the head, of course, as you do with all of our students. Secondly, with the partner companies, and we are, especially in that time of Corona, quite close to all the partner companies. I will explain that in a minute. Now, thirdly, we have to handle and to deal with our full-time lecturers, with other professors who are here not as head of a degree program, but just to lecture. And in at the DHBW, we have plenty of external. At the DHBW, we have quite many external lecturers. About 60% of the lecturing time lectures is given by external experts from out of the industry, which is a very special case for us, but quite important. Now, on the other hand, we have a relationship to our headquarters in Stuttgart, because we are only one out of different destinations at the DHBW, as well as to other locations. So we deal with the colleagues, for instance, in Karlsruhe, Stuttgart, or Mannheim. Internal offices are like the examination office existing, and as head of the degree program, we have to handle that as well. So we are in a very strong and intensive dialogue at the moment, because we have special situations at our partner companies. So we have to deal with the examination office on that. Then next to me on my left hand and right hand side, the representatives from the international office, and together with us, we deal with you and with our partner universities in Europe and all over the world. And last but not least, we are in a very close relationship to the specific associations out of our branches. So we have, like in my case, the trade fair associations like UFI, placed in Paris. We have some national associations we are dealing with. And of course, they all are discussing the Corona situation at the moment. So we are exchanging information and doing plenty more. Now, a last column you've seen here is we have, as you all in your countries, different authorities. We have the politics, local politics especially, and we have institutions like the Chamber of Commerce. And this is where we are dealing with as well. So you see plenty of contacts. Now, speaking about the special situation, what are we doing in addition to that during the last, let's say, starting by the end of March, and we don't know how long we have to continue. So this is future as well, because we still do that. We are dealing with some restart scenarios. So in combination with the partner companies, we talk about how can we restart the trade fair business, how we can restart the business hotel reopening, and so on. Then secondly, we have, unfortunately, dealing with the politics, we have to explain about the importance of the economic sector of our specific degrees and economic areas. Not so. I guess it's easier for you out of the hospitality and tourism sector. Much harder for us from the conference, convention, and exhibition sector to explain how important in terms of employed people and economic relation. This has to be taken into consideration for some help, for instance. And thirdly, out of that, we define together with associations and, of course, closely linked to authorities and the Chamber of Commerce, we develop some financial support requirement plans where we explain how important it is to help in financial dimensions those companies to bridge up to that situation where everything becomes normal, more or less normal again. So more intensive than before. We have to deal with these three parts of our community. They are stakeholders, they've been stakeholders before, but we haven't had that close touch and not that ongoing conversation as we do have today. So this is where we, as head of decree program, in Germany, you would say we are wearing plenty of different hats. So we have to change our roles more or less on an hourly basis, dealing with the students. This is our, of course, our basic business, that right column. We have to handle everything else from organizational perspective, but now more intensive and really that keeps us very busy. We became a kind of a, Connie and myself, we discussed that like a spider on the web. So we are within everything and we are receiving plenty of calls, plenty of emails. What do you think about that? We need your expertise about the importance. You have to, like I had tonight to deliver some facts and figures about the trade fair industry in the state of Baden-Württemberg to the politicians. So all of that. And this is a very specific role in the meantime for us. And last but not least, coming back to a more or less future perspective, we hope that now out of that emergency situation, we will continue this intensive dialogue with authorities, politics, and the Chamber of Commerce, even in a normal, in a regular situation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Leopold. Sylvia, are you ready? Are you there?
Can I?
Yes, I'm here.
Can I make
Sorry.
a short comment on this?
Yes.
What I would like to say is that I found very interesting this presentation or this talk from Stefan, because I think that he gave us the stage for the future, meaning that an uncertain future, nobody knows what is going to happen. We don't know what will be next day, so even less in 1 month and even less in 1 year. And so the key issue here is to be able to respond in time and in a flexible way to the changes and to the challenges. And I liked very much what Connie said, that what the companies with the students did was exactly to say, now our role changed. How can the students also do what is necessary in this changing scenario? So I think this was a very important kickoff for this reflection. And I hope that our colleagues from the other countries also can take a little bit this changing scenario, because I think it could be very helpful for everybody to know how are we facing these changes and this uncertain future. So thank you very much. I liked very much.
Thank you, Maria. Sylvia, it's your turn now.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. So in this session, we're going to have two speakers. I'm going to introduce the session, but when Marleta is going to present the report, I'm going to introduce you briefly this report. The topic we were dealing with was destination management of organizations and the impact of the crisis created by the COVID-19 situation has among all the destination management organizations. So we have a group of 12 students from Croatia, Italy, and Spain that were working on several challenges and questions related on how this crisis would affect some issues related to marketing, to planning, to management. We produced a report collecting all the answers and the feedback from these 12 students. And then we send this report to the in-company tutors from also Spain, Croatia, and Italy. And we add the feedback from the in-company tutors to this final report. And we believe that it was a good time to give the chance to the students to speak and to present themselves the results. So Wen is going to speak on behalf of this group of 12 students that produced the report, and is going to present the key ideas related to each one of the questions. So Wen, if you are ready, you can try to share the presentation.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Gwen Marletta from University of Bergamo. I'll share my screen for the PowerPoint presentation. Should be. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, I'm going to represent my colleagues, me and my Italian group, but also Croatia and Spain that worked on the challenges for destination management organizations. So the first question was about how should destinations face this post-COVID-19 phase, and how they should keep their marketing promises as a destination without a vaccine and without much certainty. And we all agreed that, of course, the destination has to communicate their safety, so their health protocols, their hygiene measures, in order to make the tourist feel safe, whether they decide to travel to that specific country. Of course, tourism is going to be pretty much domestic for the upcoming months. Of course, this is because of travel restrictions, and of course, drive-to markets are going to be preferred, of course. So the destination should be aware that also the marketing campaigns and the competition is going to be within national borders. And also there should be an attention for the local community. If the local community is not ready and does not feel safe in restoring normal tourism fluxes, the destinations should listen to their needs. And this brings us to the second question, which is about how should DMOs face this post-COVID-19 phase. And so, of course, they have to understand whether or not the locals feel at ease with tourists coming in, but also they should provide sufficient tools for the stakeholders to share information about the tourists, the targets which are going to be chosen, the market segments, etc., in order to build a network, an effective network that will allow the destination to behave effectively during this phase. And one important thing is also to use new technologies in order to convey information, not only among stakeholders, but also to the tourists. So using information apps, social media, QR codes, as you can see in the slide, etc. So the third question was about public transportation. So of course, in this phase, people live in a very uncertain moment of their lives, and it is normal for people not to feel safe in starting to travel again on public transportation, since the hygiene must be ensured. For this reason, national companies should try and market themselves as safe methods of transportation. So communicating their health protocols and ensuring safety. So maybe with social distancing, the mandatory use of masks on public transportation, but also the ways in which they sanitize environments and spaces, etc. And also other ways in which they could make it feel safer is to hire staff in order to control the fluxes of people inside of certain environments, for example, airports and stations, so that it is possible to control people and their behavior, and also to maybe to give some incentives in order to travel again. So maybe some discounts, cards, vouchers, etc. As for the fourth question, it was about how they should attract new customers and highlight the destination's advantages over competition. Of course, in this moment, the most charming experiences are the ones outdoors. The ones that do not really imply large groups of people condensating in one single place. And this is why the ecological aspect is really important, and also environmental sustainability as far as it can be ensured. And of course, again, safety must be the priority, so they have to promote it and show the measures which have been applied. There must be, if possible, small groups of people doing outdoors activities and focus on local products, for example. This is the case, for example, for Italy, that is pushing towards wine tourism, for example. This because it's usually done outdoors, maybe in the vineyards with small groups of people, and it is easier to have a relaxed experience. The fifth question was about the best approach to recover the main issuing markets, and should the destinations focus on domestic tourism. Of course, they have to promote it. In the upcoming months, it is going to be the most logical, let's say, answer to restoring tourism. Because of travel restrictions, it is easier, as I said before, to count on internal tourism. But of course, there are also some issues regarding this, especially for Italy. As the destination itself, as Italy, has a 50-50 situation for international tourists and domestic tourists, but some specific regions and some specific locations do rely heavily on international tourism. This is the case, for example, of Veneto or Lake Garda, where, for example, the German tourists are the majority of the tourists coming. And also there is a difference between the purchasing power of different types of tourists coming from different countries. And then finally, the last question was about, will COVID create some consequences on which destinations are going to be successful? Are there going to be asymmetries? Well, yes, of course. Some cities and some specific destinations are going to be disadvantaged because of the tourism that has been promoted there or that was created there during the years. For example, big cities and art cities where usually we have crowded places are not going to be really the first choice for tourists right now because of their needs. And this means that they're going to look for outdoor activities, as I said before, not only wine tourism, but also, for example, the German tourists are going back to the mountains, to the lakeside destinations, But also camping is showing great potential, especially in Italy. And of course, we must also understand that some destinations, some nations have different health conditions than our own. So some may be hit more, some may be hit less. So of course, the situations are going to vary depending on how they've been impacted by the virus. So this was my presentation. I'll go back to the normal. Okay, normal video. I hope I was clear enough, and I'll leave some minutes for questions if you want.
Okay, so I would like to thank Wen for the presentation, and also to thank the other students that were involved in this working group, because we know that they were in their final period, so they were taking their exams as well. So I would like to thank them for the effort of sending the report and participating in the Zoom we had all together. And also Wen, thank you for presenting. One of the things that we realized is that we are facing the same challenges almost in all destinations, and that destinations will have to be really creative in terms of marketing and also in terms of trying to make field tourists safe. And in this context, soft skills are going to be very, very important, because soft skills are related to communication, are related to adaptation, to be able to be flexible enough to face all these challenges. So one of the things that we realized when talking with our in-company tutors was that soft skills are going to be fundamental to face all these challenges that we have right now.
Silvia, em sents?
Sí, Paul, estem tots connectats. We have one tutor here from in-company, one of our in-company tutors. Maybe, Paul, can you give shortly your impression on the situation?
Well, we started with one of the students, and was at the initial very well and very comfortable. And we tried to develop a internal project, and after, with the coronavirus, we continue doing online, and well, we think that it's important to maintain, probably after summer, try to maintain this, because it's interesting to merge the offer, the tourist offer, with destination management, no, with the tourist office. Some of the students, they think about how the tourist office need to manage the information about the private offer, tourist offer, and I think it's quite important issues to develop in the near future. That's surely the important is to merge the private tourist offer with the tourist office, and they know, and they need to know better what happens in their towns and in the surroundings. That's it.
Yeah, Paul is one of the in-company tutors that we had, and they had the chance to keep on working online even with the situation. So both he and the student were also online and facing all these challenges that we have already presented and discussed. So for us, it was important to have also his feedback in this webinar, and to show that even the situation, we can just keep on working. I don't know if you have any questions.
I would like only to make a comment if nobody has other. First of all, I want to say, Gwen, congratulations. So it's really great, the work that you and your colleagues have done. So this shows what you have said, shows clearly that there was a big commitment, because you succeeded together to go in depth exactly in the problems that we have in the moment in the tourism sector. So congratulations. Congratulations to your tutors, because they did a great job in working with you on this. And I'm sure that they will be also very happy, because they know in this moment that they are contributing to have better professionals in the field. So congratulations to the whole team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Another comment? No? Andrea, are you there? Good morning.
Good morning, Ricardo. Thank you. And good morning to everyone. So let me briefly introduce what we did as a food and beverage group. As you know, food and beverage has been and is currently affected by coronavirus as other three sectors. We saw a large number of creative initiatives such as online delivery, home dining experiences provided by restaurants and others suppliers. But we as a group focused mainly on 4 challenges related to restaurant. These challenges are, for example, redesigning the access and the delivery, the revamping of food and beverage procedures, and also the procedures for receiving and verifying suppliers. But one of the main challenges is also the training needs of personnel. All students from Italy, Croatia, Spain, and Malta worked together, prepared a report, and today 4 students, which I would like to thank them for their contribution, their effort, because they were very involved in this task, are here to present you what we found. We discuss about possible solutions, and Marta Pretasanta, Laura Covelli, Nina Roye, and Giulia Vagliano will present you what we did, what we found, what are our solution, and we hope that may be of any help to our tutors. And at the end of this session, I would like to leave the speech to 3 of in-company tutors from Malta, Spain, and Italy, namely Mr. Charles Salvaggi, Yassin Bulala, and Michele Bubunato. I would like to thank them for being here, for providing us a feedback. And first of all, I would like to leave the speech to Marta Pretasanta to present the input, the output of the challenge number 1. Marta, you here?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, my webcam is not connecting to the browser, but I will use my microphone anyway. I introduce what we did with the task number 1. So how would you redesign the guest access to service delivery in restaurants and bars? And we should take into consideration that eating in implies more contact with the staff and other guests. So we analyze which kind of measures are available to provide social distance and health care. So first of all, restaurants should ask for a mandatory reservation so that they can organize gradual access to the restaurants. And this, moreover, does not imply a greater cost for the restaurants, while it improves the client satisfactions, since they have the certainty to access the restaurants and get the service. Then the restaurants can otherwise make the clients wait outside the restaurants in a queue. But in this case, we suggest to prepare a waiting list so that the experience doesn't get too much annoying. And currently, access to restaurants and bars in Italy is regulated by law. So mask and hand sanitizer are compulsory, and also a contact temperature measurement device is recommended. Once the guests arrive at the restaurant, he has to take his mask on, and then the staff measures his temperature. And in general, here we analyze how a great communication between staff and clients would be crucial nowadays to satisfy this changing situation and needs, and to politely explain all these procedures that are regulated by law, but that can be difficult to understand. And also it's important communication in order to make the guests feel in a safe and pleasing environment, since they are going outside and they want to get an experience and a service. And guests should not experience an effort or danger in that. Therefore, each step of dining should be rendered as positive as possible. So here, soft skills, the stuff are really important, and such as politeness and clear communication, and also creativity. So we just find out how it could be helpful to create a colorful and design all these measurements to explain them to the customer in a playful way. And the tables inside the restaurant should be distanced, and the staff should choose whether to accept the groups or not. For example, here in Italy, depending on the size of the restaurants, they can accept groups, but most of all, they accept people living together or that know each other as well. The menu and ordering should be entirely digitalized by means of digital messages or app that are also free for the restaurants. And we would not recommend restaurants to allow buffet or counter service, but only table service, in order to minimize the contact between people, food, and spaces. And moreover, we are aware that many countries are now approving putting plexiglass or between diners, but this solution is actually not sustainable. So this material is not sustainable, while social distance is an already sufficient measure, according to World Health Organizer. And other options are, for example, putting plants and flowers between diners and not plexiglass. So I will leave to speech to my other colleagues.
Thank you, Marta. Laura, it's your turn.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. I will talk about the second question. How would you revamp the food and beverage inventory control procedures in order to minimize the expenses? So inventory management is an important tool to help businesses manage and reduce expenses during this challenging time. Organizing the inventory can really help the restaurant recognize any overstocking that might lead to food wastage or increased cost. So for instance, staff members who are temporarily exempt and suspended from their original tasks can be reallocated to inventory management. So often restaurants discard any leftovers, offcuts, or extras that can lead to food wastage. But for instance, projects like To Go help restaurants in selling discounted leftovers after the opening time at a discounted price, obviously. But restaurants might even incorporate these extras, these leftovers, into a new sustainable menu. New items also can reflect customers' new need for comfort foods, which was definitely a thing during quarantine. Also, we are seeing, for instance, in the United States, there's this trend: restaurants are delivering emergency kits or survival packs where food comes with surplus inventory. and also offerings from local retailers such as self-care products or clothes or even toilet paper. Of course, in case of meal kits, special attention must be given to safety. So the name of the chef, the signature, and the production date, expiration date are all information that obviously need to be incorporated. Also, small changes in the restaurant, such as managing the inventory, but also controlling the portions or calculating food costs, can even have a massive impact on finances. Also, the use of technology, such as, for instance, downloading software for restaurant management, inventory management, or online reservation systems, mandatory reservations and bookings, digital menus, or menu engineering softwares, like, can really help determine the items that somehow can be trimmed off of the menu. Of course, additional actions to cut expenses may be, for instance, reduce the hours of operation of the restaurant, or like not hiring new staff, posing software subscriptions. Of course, these are unfortunate decisions that, however, might really be necessary in these cases. Also, businesses might consider obtaining financial aids by the government when available. For instance, in Italy, the government generally is giving provisions that might really affect employees' life. For instance, paid sick leave for people that are affected by coronavirus, or like other kind of aids for smart working, or like head-home children, whatever. So that can really help. Also, maintaining a good relationship with suppliers can really enable restaurateurs to negotiate material expenses, raw material expenses, or even extend the payment cycle when possible. So, of course, all of these actions cannot really, will not bring restaurants to earn a lot during this time, because it's probably not easy, and revamp the business, but at the same time might somehow be helpful to manage expenses and try to overcome this period. So yeah, thank you, and I will leave the word to Nina.
Thank you, Laura. Nina?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My challenge is how would we transform the procedures for receiving, inspecting, and verifying F&B deliveries from suppliers? So, however, an European Union or national common safety protocol should be established in order to protect food workers to become a vehicle of the virus. For instance, suppliers should have their body temperature checked upon arrival. The facility shall offer hand sanitizer and other devices like mask or gloves in case the supplier is not provided. The supplier company should provide restaurants with a clear and truthful informative on safety measures adopted within their facilities and along the food supply chain. Such informations might be accompanied by a video or record that proves for the suppliers comply with the rules. Staff members at the restaurant shall get rid of food packing and any other disposable material as soon as the supplier leaves. When possible, an area separated from the kitchen and other common spaces should be dedicated to discharge operations and exchanges between one designated employer and suppliers. In other words, suppliers should not be allowed in the kitchen. Even better, if the designated area is either outside or in a large space where it is possible to maintain the adequate distance. The supplier company should inform restaurants if one of their suppliers or couriers has tested positive for coronavirus. If the company that delivers the food is different from the supplier, rules apply to them as well. Goods delivered at the restaurants shall comply with the already in place rules imposed by the European Union Community. Details on ingredients and supply chain. And I think that with these requirements, we have enough to ensure the food safety.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Nina. And the last challenge and the last student, Julia, are you here with us?
Yes. Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Julia, and I wanted to talk about the fourth challenge, which is concerned with the training needs of personnel of restaurant operators. First thing first, restaurant operators must be aware of the rules that they have to apply in these peculiar times, both at a national and at a regional level. And they must also make sure that their personnel is well trained to face this peculiar situation. So a training is necessary, and the training can happen either in person with a professional course if the business can afford to allocate a budget. Otherwise, the internet is a very resourceful tool. As a matter of fact, many trade and professional organizations have made videos, for example, webinars on food safety, and they can be considered as a compulsory training for the personnel of restaurant. And independently of how the training happens, the most important topics to deal with are the sanitization of people, food, and places, especially for the people who work in the kitchen and those who come close to customers. Then the personnel must also have very good communicational skills, because they have to reassure the customers that they are in a safe and controlled environment, but also they must be able to enforce the rules if necessary and be assertive. And last but not least, all of these precautions can be thought of as something to also think about in the future, because now we have this virus, but in general, all this attention to contact and to hygiene can be important also in the future, and to reassure the customers from the operators. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thank you also to other students for their contribution. For the conclusion, I would like to leave the speech to our in-company tutors for a brief comment. I would like maybe to start with Mr. Charles Selvaggi, if he's here among us.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning, thank you very much.
Yesterday, Andrea, the presentation is very good. It goes into detail. But when I looked into it, obviously we need to segment it into different countries. Now in Malta, we are already advanced because we should be out of the emergency, even though unfortunately, and I'll use a phrase used in one of the presentation, where things are not clear here. Why? Because the politicians are saying one thing and the health authority are saying another. I'll give a very simple example. This weekend, I went to 3 restaurants, 2 were my clients, where staff were not wearing masks. When I asked them, they said they called the authority and said, you don't need to wear them. But the protocol of the Malta Tourist Authority states that they should be wearing masks. But to make it strange or worse is that the actual protocol, at the beginning, it says it's mandatory, but then when you do the checklist, it tells you yes or no, which is making things confusing. So I think anything that comes out from any reports has to be clear as crystal, what is mandatory and what is not mandatory. Let's remember the first thing we're looking at is safety, not only of the clients, but also of the staff. But secondly, we need to survive from a business point of view. So I try to put the hat of the politician, the businessman, the consultant. So we have to find a way. But I think it is time that there is a think tank of what if, because everyone's saying there's going to be a second wave, Can we be ready for a second wave and not close everywhere? Because some businesses will not afford, and I'm talking about not only restaurants, but hotels. I deal with both entities. Can they afford to have another wave and to close it again? In Malta, the government has, after a lot of pressure, we're not going into the political side, have given in that he gives a supplement until September to the restaurants now of 600 euros, and to hotels, I believe it's still 800 euros. Is that enough? When you look at our flights, if all the flights that are coming into Malta from 1st July, all of them come full, and all of them go into hotel beds, we only fill up 25% of the whole beds we have in Malta in a week. So if all the flights were full until the 16th July, because from 16th July, we're going to have more flights, 25%, you're not going to survive. We're not expecting miracles, but we need to find ways and means that we are ready for a second wave. This report, there are a few things which are interesting and can be drafted in a way that they can be implemented or be ready for a second wave. And there are other things maybe we have to think a bit more. But maybe this time that there is a think tank of people to prepare a paper for the second wave, because we need to be ready. The people in the health authorities all over the world are saying the second wave is coming. I don't know if it will come. I hope it doesn't come, because that will solve us a lot of problems. But if it does come and the vaccine is not there, then we have to be ready. Because I believe that it's very good. I mean, yes, I am a person who trains soft skills. Apart from service soft skills, I believe strongly in soft skills. Now more than ever, that now we have to keep our distances and serving, so the technique is less. So we have to focus more on the simple things of being more courteous, smiling more, and being more attentive. But there's a big but. Are we ready for the future? We don't know what the future is, agreed. But the health authorities are saying, ding dong, there's another wave coming. Let's prepare for it before it's too late. And that is my comment for now, because if not, if I had to go through every bit, I would take you hours.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Mr. Salvaggi. I would like to leave the speech to Yassin Boulala from Spain, from a brief perspective on food and beverage in Spain and our document. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Yassin. Good morning to all of you. I hope you are doing well. Just to introduce myself, for the ones you don't know me, I'm a part-time professor at the University of Girona, but also GM of one of the partner companies that participated and joined the program here, which is a golf resort with different, well, a full service resort with F&B, but also accommodation services that are provided mostly to tourists. And I would like also to congratulate the students that made this report, because most of the elements were also some challenges that we've been discussing during the last few weeks, and of course before to restart the operations were important to be clarified. And also I would like to say that I absolutely agree with Charles that here the most important thing is just to be prepared and to take into consideration, seriously take into consideration the sanitary risk, because that's the only thing that can stop this again or close our industry again. So we have to be prepared for everything. Here in Spain, we are having more or less the same issues, which means that yes, there is a protocol, yes, there are some standards, but those are not mandatory. So at the end of the day, the decision of applying those protocols or not applying them relies on the industry and the managerial positions, depending on the capacities they have, depending on the beliefs they have, and also depending on the resources they may have. But this is truly challenging. I mean, the situation created by the pandemic not only changed the reality of our industry, but also it's severely impacted on the different elements linked to this industry. Some of them we can see them or perceive them and are related to the internships, the training programs and all that, which is what we are talking about today. But I also truly believe that, that notwithstanding the situation, the work you've done on all in this project becomes more important than ever, because the specialization and also the training for me are the only way to adapt those businesses and to make them prepared for the new challenges we will be facing, and our students are part of the engine that will make this happen, this transformation happen. Concerning the F&B group, and also to add some comments to the ideas that we've seen during the presentation, for me there are four huge elements, or four big elements, generally speaking, that we are taking seriously and that we consider also the most important ones in terms of, I would say, the company managing. First one, it's the change in the operations, particularly in all of the services, but particularly the breakfast service, where big facilities like the one that we are managing here are suffering to adapt and to have a good quality product, a good quality service, and also make it quick, make it free in terms of flow of clients. So with no doubt, for me, this is the most affected area, and it changed the way we provide most of the services. In addition, I would say also that this created also a change in the labor structure and also in the way we use the materials and we provide this service. The second one, for me, it's managing the expectations of the guests and customers, because there's a wide range of sensitivity, which means that we are finding some clients that are very scared of the current situation, but on the other hand, we also see that there are some of them asking even to the waiters to take out the mask, and because they don't believe in this pandemic. So this creates a strange way of, you know, discussing or interacting with the customers, that training is the only way to prepare our team members, our staff, to deal with these kind of situations. On the same hand, as a third factor or important factor, we find also the same issues related to the team members' approach to the operations, finding that some of them are afraid, even of coming here, developing it and performing its job or its role, and even traumatized because they lost someone or they suffered the situation in their own skin. So, but on the other hand, some of them, they just could not consider the sanitary emergency a threat. So also this diversity in perceptions must be solved by training and safety protocols, very well applied and deployed safety protocols that solve the sanitary risk, but also reinforces the risk perception to the all team members to avoid any unwished situation. And finally, which is also for me the most complicated one, it became just impossible. It has to do with the forecasting and planning. This just became, impossible with the current conditions. We were used, even in terms of tourism, that it relies on the flow of people and the individual decisions that the tourist may take. But there were precedents, there were dynamics that we were able to predict. Nowadays, they just impossible, and this affects not only the capacity of the companies to organize themselves to be adapted to the market, but also to the individual choices they will make related to hiring people, training people, investing in the products to improve the hotels, the restaurants, the travel agencies and all that, and also to forecasting long term. This, I think, related to the rest of the elements that we discussed, will be also the most challenging element that we will be facing during this next 12 or 18 months. So just to be quick, this was those were the ideas that I wanted to share with you. So thank you, and Andrea.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I know that we have to be very short and precise, and we have not many times, but thank you very much for your comments. I would like to leave the final speech to Michele Bombonato from Italy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, in Italy, in bar Orica sector, the situation is more or less as Jacine says. Unfortunately, I work in a part of this market that is heavily hit because we work with bar with private and public tenders inside museum, hospital, fair, hotel, university, library, and with events. At the moment, we are completely closed in all the sectors except in hospital. So we can make deliver, we can work, all the people stay at home, and we only work in hospital in which we have to stay under the rule of the hospital. So people can't come in. So we work at the 30% of our usual business. So in this period, we are concentrated to survive, to get the money from the bank, to pass this period, and to stay close to people working with us, because they getting money from the state, but they are more or less half the usual pay they get, and it's quite difficult to make the team unite and to wait for the reopening of the other activity, because now we are projected after the summer, but we hope there's no a very big stop again, because with another lockdown we're really heavy for business like us. And now we are another thing, we are negotiating all the contracts, because they can stay, they are not okay now at the moment. We pay money to stay there because they say that we come inside people, but now it's completely closed. So we are really waiting for a new period, because at the moment we can do a lot, and that's all. So
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So for giving us the perspective from Italy and other sector, not only traditional restaurants, but also bars and also catering service. I know that we go further with timing, and my apologies. Thank you to all of you for your contribution. And if you have any questions, of course, I and my students are at your disposal. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And now we have Ludovic Pranik. Ludovic, good morning.
Well, it's not a morning anymore, but good morning to those who just woke up. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Ricardo, and thank you, Andrea, and of course, everyone else. Today, as part of our accommodation topic, I put together two students, one from Croatia, another one from Malta. And thanks to Goretti, who really rose to the occasion and helped me secure in the last minute Ana Torres from Portugal, manager of a chocolate hotel in Portugal. So let's dive straight into it. Dora, why don't you please tell us, or tell everybody else, what are some of the challenges you have identified in relation to a small boutique hotel or hotels in general, and what are some of the solutions that you and your colleague propose?
Okay, so hello everybody. So as far as the check-in itself is concerned, distinction should be made between the treatment of guests who have reservations and those who have requested the accommodation at last minute. It is recommended that guests with a reservation send all relevant personal information in advance so that their check-in can be easily made. Only guests who share the same rooms may stay in front of the receptions, while the others are waiting at a distance, preferably in the open. One of the small things that could make the process of registering a guest at the more pleasant is the purchase of transparent masks for staff, because visible grimaces reflect a positive atmosphere. Also, this is one small example by which can also create added value to service in a situation like this. Talking about breakfast, there are two ways that one can provide breakfast with the measures listed. The first way is, of course, to deliver breakfast to the rooms. Breakfast is accompanied by a food menu. Emphasize their wishes for breakfast the next day. Another way is to pack breakfast in special packages that will be delivered on the floors, and one individual from each room will be able to come and pick up the package, of course alone and without a direct relationship with the others. Although the situation is financially unfavorable, this style of breakfast could positively affect the financial expenses of the hotel. As for the stay in the hotel, only one person or a group of people who came together will be able to enter the elevator. Every 2 hours, the staff will disinfect the elevator. Also, when we talk about rooms, in some hotels, there is a device that disinfects the entire room within 1 minute without leaving any drops. Immediately after, the maids can clean the room. Also, spare blankets, towels, and extra furniture should be removed from the closet, as well as any surface that could pose a risk of spreading the virus. And when we talk about gym and wellness and spa, first solution is to book individual training sessions, which would allow the guests to be alone in the gym and truly disinfect after each exerciser. As for guest checkout, it will take place in the same way as guest check-in, with minimal contact as possible between guests and staff, and in the communication methodology that each hotel guest must receive is writing all the necessary instructions for behavior, so that the check-out and guest check-in process is carried out in the most effective and efficient way in accordance with the current situation. That's it.
Thank you, Dora, very much for your elaborate presentation. Now, let's give the floor to Maria Casar from Malta. Maria, are you here? Can you, I know you mentioned something about artificial intelligence, so I'm sure everyone would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Good morning. I am Maria Casar from University of Malta. My colleague David Miliotto and I made a research about how artificial intelligence can be an aid to the Grand Hotel Excelsior during such crisis of the COVID-19. Artificial intelligence technologies are rapid innovations and are fast-growing developments in the hotel industries across the world. AI technologies are driving competitive advantage and are changing the way that properties and guests interact with one another. However, there are still drawbacks amongst these technologies, as mostly they reduce work. Artificial intelligence is a developed computerized machine which programs how to think like humans and imitate actions. This system is improved to a certain way to learn new features and accomplish problem solving. During our research, we concluded that artificial intelligence may enhance the experience of the guests and the quality of service provided that is delivered from these technologies. Moreover, AI can accomplish tasks that were once possible only by humans. And some of these tasks may include problem solving, interpreting visual cues, and speech recognition. As disadvantages, we concluded that AI systems have security issues, as there may be threats like cyber attacks and security breaches, or hackers might manipulate any computer inserted into a hotel's digital infrastructure. Moreover, AI technologies transmit no emotional connections to the guests. The Grand Hotel Excelsior is well recognized for their outgoing, customer-centric and passionate team, which would be a letdown to replace such a crew with emotionless automatic services. As we have seen, AI technologies can advance the quality of front office services. However, the introduction of AI would lead to a lack of human interaction between the staff and the guests. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Maria, for your helpful contribution. Now let's hear from our last-minute addition to our roster, Ana Torres. Welcome. We don't hear you.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. So I agree with Dora that some explanation that she gave to us. We for all that situation that we will pass now, we change a few things in our hotel. In first place, of course, the check-in procedure changed a little bit. So we anticipate the information. We send, we send an email to the guest to provide to us all the informations about him, and we, of course, in the cleanest change a little bit. We do more regular the cleanest, and we, of course, do the breakfast in the room or in the table. We did not do now the buffet breakfast. These times it's very difficult, of course. We try to do to reduce the contact, but we try to do our best. We try to keep the smile, of course, but the smile is now it's not the guest can't see the smile of the staff, but we try to do all the things with respect. About the artificial intelligence, for small hotels, it's a little bit difficult to do that because we don't have the resources or financial resources to do that. But I believe for the biggest hotels, it's a very good way to provide a new service, and I believe the clients will satisfied about that. I don't know if you have any questions, if you want to know anything about our new procedures, because we do, like Dora said, we did not do buffet breakfast. We do a table. We do the service at the table to the client. We deliver the breakfast in the room, and we do the breakfast. We do a package for the breakfast. I don't know if you have any questions.
Actually, I have a question, but it's my question is inspired by a little discussion in our Zoom group chat over here that I see from Alan Arrigo. As Dora and others have suggested, especially in terms of F&B and accommodation sector, that hoteliers are abandoning, so moving away from the buffet service and moving to table service. Now, our colleague Alan Arrigo suggested some sort of a middle ground here, where you keep the buffet service, but change the way it is, the way the customers get the food. Whereas in a traditional buffet service, customers help themselves. Now, he suggested that we keep the buffet service, however, that restaurant servers are the ones serving the food, placing the food on the plate and handing it to the guest. I just wanted to hear, someone from not only you, Anna Torres, but someone from the F&B, from our Italian colleagues. What do they think about that middle ground? Did I describe this in a way that is understandable?
Yes. We in first place we decide to do a buffet breakfast. I know that some other hotels do the buffet breakfast, but the staff are serving the client, and it's possible, I believe, but I hear some of other colleagues that it's a little confusing, because if they have clients or more clients do the at the same time, the clients will be not satisfied, and of course we for satisfying our clients we need to have more staff to doing that job. I believe the table service, and if the client can order, if they have some tablet to order the breakfast, it's better, because we don't need more staff to doing that. We just need to, it's like a restaurant at lunchtime or dinner time, and I believe it's the best solution for us. At the present time, it's the best solution, and I can tell you at this point, I believe we can with this service, table service, we reduce the food cost with breakfast. I believe we cannot waste food, and I believe it's a better service and personalized service to the client. And in the future, I believe it's maybe the best solution, and we cannot do anymore the buffet breakfast. I believe it's a best option, and it's one of the things that I supposed to tell you.
Thank you, Anna. Again, going back with another great point brought by Alan Arrigo. Now, he made a distinction between a larger and a small restaurant or a dining area inside a hotel. He argues that a smaller hotel or a smaller smaller restaurant will do just like you said. You will not have extra staff costs when you do the table service, when you abandon the buffet service and move to the table service. But larger dining areas or larger hotels and restaurants, they may need to hire some extra staff, and therefore they may have an impact on their bottom line. What do you think about that view? Anna,
can
go ahead.
I add something to that, Ludovic?
Sure.
I would like to say that I'm not sure if big hotels there will be really big dining rooms, because what we see is that they have to reduce to 50%, and so because they cannot fulfill the whole room like it was before. They have the social distance, and so normally you can put one table, the other one is not, and so on. Well, I don't know exactly how it is in Croatia, but in many countries it's like this. And so my question is this really a problem that it will be full, or in the end, because it's reduced to 50%, will be again not so large? Yeah.
If I may, since I made the comment. If you have a large hotel, so say 300, 400, whatever rooms, 50% of a big number is still a big number. It's true there'll be reduced capacity, of course, that makes sense. But you will still have people that will book rooms and they will still need to be serviced. So with social distancing as it is and not having plated service with a big operation, you either have an enormous queue with social distancing, or you'll have disgruntled customers because the truth is the operation of a big dining area in a big hotel is geared for mass market. Therefore, the plated service will have to increase staff costs to try and mitigate that, to keep the service good, or else the quality and the whole point of being hospitable is reduced. So you have to balance between cost or being hospitable at that rate.
And by shifts, for instance?
Ships is very similar. What they do is
no shifts.
You can do shifts,
It's
yes.
saying that from 8 to 10 and from
You can do shifts, yes. That is possible. But again, how many? If you have many dining areas, it is much better. Problem is every hotel has a different setup. So it might work for some, but it might not work for everyone.
May I?
Of course.
What Alan is trying to say, and I intend to agree, it's about segmenting. I mean, 400 beds, 20 beds is totally different. I think it's all about communicating to the clients, having a procedure and protocol, and keeping safe. I believe, and I have some ideas which I was drafting, that even a buffet can be as safe as dining in an a la carte restaurant. Yes, we could also use some sort of technology by having iPads on the table, but then there's a cost. Now, why am I involving cost? Because the reality is that most of us, or most of my clients, have come out from, or is coming out from COVID. Financially, yes, there are some help, but till when is that help going to be? So it's the survival also of the business, but I insist by being safe. So I believe that if you sit down, any restaurant can be as safe as it can be if it follows the rules, but adjusted accordingly to the protocol, to his restaurant. No, the most important thing is that the staff are trained to follow the rules, and that the communication of the guest is clear as crystal. As Alan said, I'm not sure if Maria suggested, obviously if you have half of 400 beds, 200, you cannot do shifts from 8 till 1 in the afternoon for breakfast. People will have breakfast in a limited time. So that's why you have to segment. Yes, you will have a baseline of solutions in general, but then you have to try to fit them in every different restaurant. Like restaurants who have a big outdoor and a small indoor. At the moment, they're fine in Malta, but what about winter if we continue going with this? Or vice versa, if I have a big indoor and a small outdoor. So it's all a balance, but always making sure that our staff and our clients are safe. That is the focus. But at the end of the day, then the next focus is how is this particular company going to survive? Survival is also part of the whole equation. Thank you.
Alan, thank you very much for your great insights that allowed me to ask these questions and try to dig deeper for some answers. And again, thanks, Charles, for your contribution as well. I guess, going back to Ricardo.
Thank you so much, Ludovic. So we are a little bit late, but Paulo, are you there?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you all. Thank you for your invitation. Let me tell you that this is not going so well as it should. We are in the middle of the crisis. I hear that some people talk about we're getting back for business, well, it's not the same at the same places. Nowadays, I think it has been difficult for many countries that still have a huge number of cases. And obviously, there are a huge amount of countries that have difficulties regarding the coming back of their tourists from abroad. So let me share you something that I've done. Okay. First, I have to say that we are talking about the huge numbers of tourism activity, and the huge numbers of tourism activity depend on flights. And starting at the middle of March, we lost the flights, we lost the airport activities, we lost the borders, no borders to cross. We lost the cities to visit. Well, everybody went home. All the places, all the business went home. We start working in a scenario by online working scenario. We lost also all of the business eventually by closing, or eventually because they didn't have no one at all to get there. For instance, restaurants. The restaurants are very important for the business because it's a necessity of tourism. It's the first stage of necessities of tourism. And obviously, we went to a general crisis, no tourism at all. And we were hoping that soon enough, we could get back to action and to get back to tourism as before, for instance, in February. This year start very well. Well, we had huge results. We had good results in all over Europe and obviously also here in Portugal. But at this point, well, we are trying to discuss whether we can receive tourists from United Kingdom, from United States, from everywhere. And I think we are getting you're getting to a general crisis, and we are getting to a general idea that the countries will be very angry at each other. We at this stage, we have difficulties of getting several countries together in this general effort. We have to state that the European Union was a very important factor on dealing this crisis, mainly because, for instance, the flights were very well worked by them, but there were other circumstances, other things that they couldn't solve, like, for instance, the borders. Which country had their own policies on how to work with borders and how to work with neighbors. For instance, Portugal, they only have one neighbor. So at this point, we can't rely on the United Kingdom tourists or so. Now they are relying on the Spanish border and in our own market, in our domestic market, okay? So I bring you to talk a little about the business as it all, because travel agent and tour operator depends on how working good is the business and the restaurants, the destinations, the hotels, the accommodation, and obviously we can't forget one thing that is quite hugely important. This depends on health, and the main issue today is health, and the main issue is the difficulty to get back to the air transportation flights normally as they were in February, okay? Firstly, we have from Malta, Micaela Sirkop, from Portugal, Susana Machado, and from Croatia, Tanja Rogic. I do apologize if I spelled badly. and they'll talk a little about how the sector, how the tourism activities working in their own countries, obviously regarding the fact that the travel agencies, for instance, are just like any store, and the health authorities treated it as such. So they couldn't receive the public, they couldn't receive no one at their office, they closed the office, and now they're getting back for business. Okay, so Michaela Shirkop.
Hi, hello everyone. I am Michaela Maria Kirkop from Malta, and together with Christabel Bohajar, we did our work experience with Roberta Rigo and Sons, a travel agency in Malta. When COVID-19 emerged in Europe, the main task of the agency's employees was to contact the tourists who were coming to Malta or who were still in Malta and offered suggestions on how to get back home. For this part of the income project, we researched about changes that might occur in the excursions activity sector and what new trends to expect after the COVID-19. With regards to the excursion sector, Malta enforced a new set of regulations for tour guides. Some of these regulations include having smaller groups, online payments, social distancing between the guide and the tourists, use of masks where necessary, use of disposable or personal headphones if they are required, and that the vehicles used to transport tourists can only carry up to 50% of their maximum capacity. From these new regulations, we came up with a few proposals for travel agencies, such as Roberta Rigo and Sons. Firstly, we proposed that during excursions, the agency provides tourists with packages containing hand sanitizer, a set of gloves, and a mask. Additionally, we proposed that instead of a tourist guide, a mobile application is used, similar to the Pocket Guide app. This is an application which offers location-based audio tours to more than 150 cities. However, this is not available in Malta. Therefore, it is a perfect opportunity for travel agencies to enter this online market. With regards to new trends after COVID-19, we believe that domestic tourism will be on the rise. For instance, in Malta, many Maltese citizens are planning their summer vacations in Gozo rather than traveling to a different country. We believe that people will prefer to travel by car and stay in private rental properties instead of crowded hotels. Another new trend can be tourists visiting off the beaten track areas rather than busy cities. This will allow people to adhere to social distancing rules and reconnect with nature. A new trend that will have an impact on travel agencies is the fact that before COVID-19, many people booked early holidays and made use of early booking discounts. However, this is set to change since future travel plans are still at risk of sudden cancellations. Moreover, it is also possible that friends and families will travel together to make up for the lost time during lockdown. Lastly, touchless travel can also be one of the new trends. Technology will lead the way with robot cleaners and more touchless options like electronic passports and boarding passes. One can notice that COVID-19 has had a massive impact on travel agencies and the tourism sector. However, from these new regulations and new trends, one can argue that some of these changes can actually leave a positive impact on the host country. Finally, we would like to express our gratitude for the opportunity to take part in this project and work with Roberta Rigo and Sons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's hear about Portugal. We have Susana Machado.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susana, and I have been working on this with my colleague Beatriz. And basically, in Portugal, people now aren't really looking for getting out of the country, only if they really have to, in work, for example. And basically all destinations with a greater affluence, mass destinations with a lot of tourists are now will see probably a huge fall in demand People are afraid, but they are also tired of all the confinement, so they want to travel, but obviously safely. Therefore, they will they will choose less massified destinations, less known, and probably will have a new tourist profile, and a tourist that will be looking for a countryside and nature and adventure, but really in a quiet places. In Portugal, cities like Porto and Lisboa and Algarve has a lot of tourists, and probably this summer we'll see that Lisboa, Porto and Algarve will be a little bit more quiet, and our countryside probably will have a lot of tourists, and that's really good because in Portugal sometimes only Algarve, Porto and Lisboa are the three regions that have tourists, and now the countryside has a possibility and a shot to prove itself and to welcome people. So basically people will choose maybe holidays homes, bungalows instead of huge hotels. For example, for my city, Viana do Castelo, it's really good because it's a small city, really quiet, and it has a lot of countryside nearby. So I think it's really good in that aspect. And that's it. Me and Beatriz, we are very thankful to be part of this project, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. We also have Tina Rosic. I think I said a little better this time. Okay, Tina?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tina, a third-year student from University of Split in Croatia. First of all, I will primarily address the question of how would I keep the business alive and avoid permanent closure. The biggest obstacle is the operation of small businesses lays in the fact that they don't take the possibility of emergencies into account, but they do operate too confidently, maybe without thinking in the long run, focusing exclusively on the current situation. So to respond adequately in crisis situations such as this caused by the coronavirus, we believe that the more attention should be paid to prevent and to also eliminate the possibility of negative consequences in order to ensure a timely response and not to create solutions during the pandemic. In this way, small businesses such as travel agencies would not feel the negative consequences on their business to such an extent due to prepared crisis strategy. And I think that the introduction of crisis management will be the crucial thing to do. The other question was how can we present ourselves inviting and create a relaxing atmosphere while at the same time having to communicate rules and regulations. So I think that the most important thing is to warn tourists to respect the given measures and emphasizing the fact that their safety is the primary in our focus, while it's necessary to use soft skills so that tourists do not create resistance to travel to our destination. And for example, when booking accommodation, the guests should be informed by the caterer about all the behavioral informations within the destination through any form of communication. And that's all from me today. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, they stated 2, 3, 4 minutes for each, so I hope that we get a little back for the time table that we had at the starting point. Let me also say 2 or 3 things that I need to say. Firstly, I need to tell that the students were quite well. And obviously, among these 3, I need also to add Cristobal Buarias, sorry for the spelling, Mariela Levic from Croatia, also Aris Julio and Beatriz Oliveira from Portugal. And also, she's not with us, Spain is not with us, but we worked a little on this subject, and I have to address my thanks to Maria Pont from Girona. Well, we have also to state that mostly the tourism is going to be mostly, I think next year, mostly is going to be to the place where the places where people don't get often. So people will, we don't have the vaccine, we don't have the natural conditions to overcome for this virus, and we have to work with the conditions that we have at this point. And I think the demand will obviously change the way that we have the business working, okay? So this is a huge important, and I often say huge today, this is a huge important task for us, is to look to our places, to our destinations, and to work how can we get the best places for this kind of demand. So obviously we'll have a lot of problems with the difficulty of several countries to get their tourists from abroad back. Obviously, this is going to be a starting tourism business where we have our own nationalities in our backyards, and obviously we have also the same for the countries that have borders with us. And Portugal, for instance, it's very difficult because we only have one country with sharing a border with us, that's Spain. But also it's very important that Spain is a huge market for us, okay? So we have to be hoping for the better. And obviously the first concern that we have to have at this point is that we hope that everything is going to be well, and our health is very, very important. Business without safety is no important for us at this point, or rather in the future. So we're learning also with this crisis, we're learning on 2020 year. So it's going to be a very difficult year. It's being a very difficult year, but we have a lot to learn. And for instance, for the universities, for the politics, for the teachers, is a very important time for learning experience, and to think that everything can change from night to day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paulo. We are 20 minutes late, but now we have Joe Tanti. Joe, good morning, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. I have a bit of a dilemma now. We're running a bit late, and I'm standing between all of you friends and lunch. So we try to cooking up our session. First of all, thank you very much to the INCOM colleagues and partners for giving me this opportunity. It's a bit of a sad, first of all, well done to all the presenters this morning. It's a bit of a sad situation. There's nothing new to say that this global pandemic has hit our tourism industry the hardest of all the sectors, and our sector would be the last to recover. And I think we can easily say that the tourism that we know it won't be the same before 2022. You know, it will be tough, but we are here and we must move forward. To introduce today's session, I have a pleasure to introduce Ms. Tajana Mestrovic and Ms. Petra Strunia from Croatia, who have worked at the with these examples at the Le Meridian split. Unfortunately, the supervisor could not be with us, but she sent her apologies. But obviously, she's relying on these two great students. And obviously, what we will be looking at as through their assignment is to look into how they envision how, you know, how they would envision that meetings and conferences will be held in the future. Also, will things change, and how for the meetings, incentives, conference and incentive and events industry will be in the COVID-19 aftermath. So Tajana and Petra, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tajana. I am from Split in Croatia. I have been working in Hotel Le Meridian Lab in Split with my colleague Petra. First of all, I want to say that Congress tourism is a specific form of tourism in which the main motive is not vacation, but the participation of individuals in various gatherings. Visitors travel because of a specific need that is often related to their workplace. The situation of the coronavirus had a negative impact on many sectors, but the biggest impact was on tourism. Here in Croatia, many people earn money by renting a private accommodation or doing business in travel agencies. So the Congress industry has also experienced a major downturn as a large number of people meet at conferences. The advantage of Congress tourism is the high consumption of Congress guests compared with classic guests. And because Congress guests are people, business people and professionals, and their companies usually pay their food costs and accommodation costs, so they have biggest personal budget. Their demand are higher, but they will also pay more for the service. So in this crisis, international gatherings should not be organized, but domestic gatherings with domestic participants should be organized with some measures like wearing masks, gloves, using disinfectant, and it's very important to ventilate the hall after each group. The crisis has hit agencies that are specialized for events. But for the hotels, so this is only the part of the activities. So they will try to return of the total income during summer from holiday tourism. Here in Split, the biggest hotel for Congress tourism is Hotel Le Meridian Lab, where my colleague and I were working. So Petra will continue the story. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Petra. I'm from University of Split. So because of coronavirus pandemic, tourism and Congress industry have suffered great losses. Many events have been cancelled, postponed, or transferred online. Pandemic will and already has changed the ways that we are doing businesses and holding events. So a lot of people are afraid to travel because of the risk of getting infected and because they feel responsibility for their friends and family members, and therefore they are not eager to travel. So what do we expect for the future? We expect that small events will be held offline in the near future. However, it will be of a high importance that preventive measures will be taken to ensure safety. Examples include providing protection gear such as masks and gloves, as my colleague already said, and temperature checks, disinfection points, and protective barriers. What concerns Hotel Le Méridien Lab, where we worked, we think that they have a lot of possibilities as they have highly educated staff members and infrastructure such as 11 conference rooms. So yes, Corona pandemic is a great problem, but it's also a challenge. And we believe that this is a great opportunity for hotels to improve their offer by adding innovative factors and use opportunities digitalization offers. Hotels could host variety of events such as virtual tours and workshops as part of internships and further education possibilities as an example. With that, hotels could serve as a connector between people worldwide and as a great knowledge sharing environment. And thank you for your attention and the possibility to participate in this project. That's all.
Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Tayana, for your interventions. And with us also we have Dr. Jonah Bayer, who is a senior lecturer at the Institute for Tourism, Travel and Culture of the University of Malta. John was one of the 4 academics who acted as tutors to the students on their placement, together with the company tutors, of course. So I would like to invite him to put forward some reflections following your presentations, Petra and Tayana. John? Yes. John, you need to unmute.
Yes, I always forget to put on the mic. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Petra and Tayana, for your very valid comments and suggestions. One additional comment that I would like to make is that I suspect in the coming years, especially in the coming next year, there will be a significant increase in hybrid conferences, which would be a conference that includes attendance of participants at the venue, as well as digital attendance of other participants. Initially, I think this kind of conference, there will be more of digital attendees rather than in person, but gradually, I think it will shift over as people get more confident to travel. It will shift over to more in-person physical presence of attendees. Now, obviously, a conference, the good thing about conferences is networking, meeting other people, the program, which is not part of the kind of the social program, that is all very important. But in the current situation, a hybrid conference offers an alternative which allows people who have an interest in that particular topic to actually follow the proceedings, to follow what's happening during the event. In terms of revenue, there will be revenue, obviously, from the people who actually attend to the conference, who are physically present, but also revenue from people who attend digitally, who attend online, and then, of course, there will be revenues from sponsorships and so on. So this crisis has created a situation where we are changing the way of how we do things. A hybrid conference, say, a year ago would have been unthinkable. People wouldn't have liked the idea. But I would suspect that in the coming months and years, this will become more frequent. One other point I would like to make about MICE is the events such as cultural events, sports events, exhibitions. These are a very important sector, very important also for tourism. And they are the sector which is most hit compared to tourism. You cannot have theater, you cannot have concerts. And that is an issue which, you know, countries, tourism authorities have to think very carefully how to try to bring this sector back into activity, especially to avoid having businesses involved in the cultural sector failing. So this, I believe it is a sector that needs more attention. Over to you, John.
Thank you, John, for your intervention. I know that we're behind schedule, so I'm not going to stay long, but just as an inviting question, I'm seeing again, still here, I'm seeing Dr. Maria Avellino, who's the head of the ITTC department. It was a pleasure for us to coordinate with her and her team. I'm also still seeing Charles Selvaggi, and I'm not seeing Alan Arrigo, perhaps he's still around, so, or any other colleagues who are here and I'm not seeing on the screen. Probably it's because of my hunger, it's for lunch. But anybody who would like to make any further interventions or from the other partner countries, please do so. Okay, no questions, no further questions.
Hi, Joe and everybody. I didn't have a presentation prepared for today, but I also wanted to join in and see the outcome of this. I think as a director of the Institute, it has been a very positive experience for our students. And it is amazing, you know, with the ideas that they were able to generate, obviously supported by their tutors and also, well, by the trios. So I think, well, overall, very positive all around. Just a few comments maybe on what was already said, especially as regarding what Elena Rigo and the others were talking about the buffet, for example. Excuse me. The way food has been presented in the past, I'm sure needed to be changed, not just with COVID. It's just that COVID brought all of this to a head. I know that some people don't go to certain places because of the, let's say, the presentation of buffet service. Some people do not like it at all, even if there was no COVID. So with the COVID situation, it's going to be even more dramatic. In a way, there is a solution to, well, a mini solution to this, and it would be to have food in a way that can be sort of self-service, so that you reduce the amount of employees that you need to give out the food. But it has to be sealed. On aircraft, for example, this is what you would get if you are a passenger, and not now because things have changed. But in the past, your hot meal would come ready sealed. So you are the person that is going to unseal it and open it. So whether it's a breakfast, whether it's dessert, and so on. So you could have this system whereby you have a buffet, obviously, but not you're being served from a large tray, but you take your own sort of mini meals, which are all sealed. I think that in that way, these can be provided by the catering staff and put out there, and thus reducing certain amount of employees that you would need. However, on the other side, we talk about sustainability. That's not a very sustainable form of packaging, but there is packaging which is sustainable. There is. And in the past, it was expensive, even for airlines to use. But today, it's not so expensive, even when they consider weight, for example. If you have a lot of weight, you need to pay more, you have more fuel. So there are ways around it, even the type of paper that is used and so on. So I think we just have to be a bit more creative. It's not going to be easy, but I think we will get there, providing new challenges for new ways that we take our holiday. And on another note, I also agree with Dr. Abrayer, where he's talking about hybrid. So you've got hybrid meetings, all these sorts. We have to think in different ways. So thank you for having us join the Income Project as well.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Avellino, Dr. Abeyer. I thank once again also Petra and Tayana for their presentations. I thank all the previous presentations, and especially it was a pleasure for Malta to be here. It was a pleasure for me to hear also the practitioners, Charles and Alan Arrigo, to be with us, knowing their very, very busy schedules. So thanks, and I hand back over to you, Ricardo. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I have here Professor Ana Teresa Oliveira that asked me to talk. It's yours.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Hello, everyone. I would just like to make a brief note regarding our students from another discipline in Portugal. Unfortunately, they are working today, but they worked really hard on the project. And I just wanted to share a question from the 7 that they worked on to make sure that I can share with you the work they accomplished. I will share with you the answer to the question how to deal with losses, because probably today, from what I have heard, we still have not gone to this specific point. So I picked this number 7 question. How to deal with losses? How soon will the company be able to pay the funding supports? Well, this is a really hard question, and we consider 2 scenarios for the pandemic in Portugal. We consider the sources from the OECD international statistics, and we considered especially GDP, that in the single hit scenario and the double hit scenario, the sources of the GDP, the real GDP, we studied it as it is declining sharply and recovery will only be partial. And we also studied the unemployment rate, which is, of course, rising fast in a single hit scenario, a little lower than, of course, a double hit scenario. So we studied all the statistics from the OECD. And just not to take you a lot of time, but probably because this is a very relevant question and students work really hard on this. And I will just say a few points from their work. As the time has progressed during the pandemic virus, the economy has taken a big hit, as you know. In the Portuguese case, the GDP dropped around 20% in 2020, and the unemployment rate rose around 10%, previously being constant. In the single hit scenario, the forecast of the economic situation seems to be a lot more pleasant for the growth of the GDP and the decrease of the employment rate. Both the statistics from the OECD and our predictions seem to be able to get the normal rates before the COVID pandemic, which is the better scenario that can result from the measures taken from the governments to this moment. If by any chance there is another surge of the virus, the economy would be looking at a second hit that could destabilize the situation even more. Small and medium enterprises would not really be able to hold much longer if major confinement measures will be taken again, as the losses are already a great worry. A way to deal with losses would be to quantify the losses as soon as possible, to have a better understanding of the real situation and the enterprises to know which portion of the losses is actually connected to the pandemic and not the real situation of the company. Some countries provide deferral and relief through public procurement measures. Some countries have introduced derogations from standard procedures to cover extraordinary needs, like many of the EU countries for now. So the payment of the funding support would not be as urgent as other loans taken by the companies. Also, looking at the loans taken by the companies, there is also a chance that the bank can lower the rates of interest. This can ease the financial stress that many enterprises face, as incomes are low or negative, and in the future, when the situation is more favorable, the payments can be normalized again. Looking at a longer-term scenario, as the lockdown measures imposed by the government start to be alleviated, economic recovery will really depend on the efficiency and effectiveness of the actions that governments will take to help businesses, workers, and companies in the world after COVID. So, taking into account the first scenario again, the one-hit situation, losses will be decreasing steadily, and companies will be able to recover their financial security as time goes by. Eventually, as all the sectors of the economy have a more solid basis of development, the payments of the funding supports can become a bigger priority than now when the situation is not as good. If you analyze the second scenario, the double hit situation, smaller companies might not be able to afford staying open, which would result in an even greater economic loss, facing even more debt and not being able to pay that debt. Therefore, the way to deal with financial losses and to pay the funding received during the pandemic situation really depends on the future outcome and future scenarios that can be analyzed, hoping that a one-hit scenario is the most probable situation, which would guarantee a better future in a post-COVID world. So thank you all for this just slightly change of the working plan, but I would really, it would be a shame to not present our students' work, and hoping that this could be another interesting subject for discussion and for income. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana Teresa. Maria João Rauch also wants to leave us a final thought. Maria?
Thank you, Ricardo. And don't be afraid, because I will not delay very much lunch. So, against what I normally do. But I wanted really to leave here a very positive message. First of all, I think that most of the work that was shown here was extremely useful, because it was pragmatic, it was objective, and showed how young people can dive in the problems, be creative, and give advice. I really enjoyed to see Alan Arrigo saying here in the chat, thank you, Michaela, we are going to follow your suggestions. So this is a big feedback, and a very positive feedback. So I think that these teachers or professors that were with these students, and the tutors of the company, so the trios that succeeded really to do a great job with the students and bring them inside the sector and the problems of the sector, I would like to leave here a very good message and say that this is why this project exists, is to do this kind of work. And also I want to highlight that the students that were really committed and that really did a great job, they really showed here what they did and what is their value in the sector and on the work that they did. So I appreciate it very much to hear the students here, and I think this was a fundamental part of this conference. So this is, and finally, so I want to thank, of course, all the participants. It was very interesting for me to be here, but especially I would like to make a proposal, and that is that we all unmute our microphones and that we give a big applause to Goretti, because being a manager of a project in these times is not easy, and she did a big effort to get this result. So I think we all are have solidarity in this, in how to arrange. It was a good work. I am very glad that I have a good feedback to put in my report. And I would like now really to make this suggestion that we unmute and that we give an applause to Goretti.
Thank you all. Thank you all of you. Thank you, Maria. It's been a pleasure to manage and to work with this team, and to organize this webinar was one of the steps we did together as a team, and that's the best way to work, is all together and in the same direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all. We are reaching the end of this webinar, Reflections on Challenges for the TNH Sector. It was indeed an extremely and productive debate. I would like to thank to all the speakers from different panels from this webinar. I believe that we have contributed to the general clarification on this topic. I would also like to thank to everyone who followed these broadcasts. I finish by saying that the Income Tourism Project will continue to reinvent itself even with this COVID-19 crisis. Don't forget to continue to following this project. Follow us in our social networks, visit our sites, and any questions or clarifications on these or other issues related to the tourism industry, do not hesitate to contact us. I'm sure that any of the partners in this project will be happy to help you. As for us, we will see you soon. It was a pleasure to have you in that side. Thank you so much to all.